don't think.
Also, sorry, very quickly on that. I think it's both. It's combined with squad building and tactics, because you can clearly see that this whole thing of playing a high line and attacking, you're getting exposed. You could very easily take a few steps back, suppress pressure, give Haaland more space to run into, give KDB a chance for a transition, and therefore you change things. But the issue is you're dealing with a manager who, for his entire career, has never needed a plan B. For his entire career, he's never had a scenario where he can give up possession and actually counter-attack or play in transition.
But we did that yesterday.
You lost.
You're looking exactly.
Wait. You sat back and you countered.
In the second half, City seceded possession and our pressing intensity halved.
We dominated it. But...
No. What happened?
I'm being facetious. Do you know what? I'll just jump in for a second here. Do you know, I wouldn't call Pep a fraud. I'd love to, but I can't. I can't disrespect him to that level. Where I do think the conversation around Pep is this: Pep's one of the greatest of all time. This, for me, is a bona fide fact. But when it comes between splitting hairs between the best, this is going to be an area for that, in my view. This little run and how this rebuild in itself goes. So I don't think it's about him being a fraud or a bad manager. I think there's an element here of a City fan phoned into Talk Sports today and said this. I thought it was tremendously brave of him to say it, but also very correct. That he's almost put, I wouldn't use the wording he did, put his legacy on the line, but maybe he means putting his GOAT status on the line. If City over the next 2 or 3 windows spend £500 million, £600 million to rebuild this squad, and he can't win the league title again, or they're some way off it, and it just never gets anywhere near that same quality again, it will be used in debates in the future. But when you're looking at Paisleys and Fergies and Shanklys and you know, all these great managers, Peps, it will be used. They will look at it and say, especially from an English point of view, inherited a good City team, turned them into one of the best we've ever seen. But when that team aged out, wasn't able to get it back to anywhere near those levels where other managers have. However, for me, this is where I think these conversations go too far. I will not take anything away from Pep Guardiola. I will never diminish any of his achievements by saying, well, he had more money in this and he did this and he walked. It means walking into that Barcelona team as a freshling manager with no experience. Do people understand the pressure of doing that? That in itself is an accolade, which I don't think we should talk about. I think how you split hairs between the greatest ever is by looking at the things they all achieved and the things maybe not they didn't achieve, but things they both attempted and didn't quite work out. And what Pep's now doing is going to remove some of the ambiguity, because it was always open to interpretation. Oh, I think he could rebuild 2 or 3 teams at one club. I think this could happen. We've seen Fergie work in 2 different leagues, so we know that he's done it. When there's ambiguity, it's impossible to come to an end conclusion. We might now get that answer, which I'm quite excited about. And of course, I want Fergie to come out on top. By the way, I also have to concede that if he builds another great team that in 2 years' time starts dominating again, and then he goes on and does well internationally, keeps winning more and more trophies, he might surpass Sir Alex. And I'm completely open to that, because I can't create standards for Fergie that I think make him the greatest ever, that if somebody then surpasses, I then try and pull the rug from under their feet and move the goalpost. I just think that's disingenuous to the sport we love of football. I wouldn't call Pep a fraud. I think that is far too far. But I do think there should be criticism on him for when he says there's no solution. I find that to be, for me, that is a chink in the armor. There must be a solution. I'll give you an example. Carl Walker playing. You're barely winning games when he starts. How could it be any worse to give an academy player a go? If you're only winning 0.57 points per game, take Walker out and give a kid an opportunity. Don't have a situation where you say, I don't have any players. You've got one of the best academies in the world. That is where I look at the manager and the head coach and say, I think you're getting it wrong. And no matter what you've achieved, I think criticism is deserved there. What I don't think is right is to try and use this current problem to diminish previous achievements. I hope I've worded that right. But that's my sort of view on that conversation about Pep.
Do we think Pep is actually going to see out this rebuild, though? Like Nobbin said, that there's a list of potentially 10 players there that City are best moving on from. That's just in the immediate future. That's not accounting for what could happen in the next 2 years. You know, Ake was one that was potentially on that list. We don't know what's going to happen with other players who were in that squad. In an ideal world, it would take minimum 2 seasons where you make every transfer and every transfer is a resounding success. It would take 2 years to rebuild the squad in the way that Nobbins and I know other City fans feel it needs to be done. Pep's only got 2 years. He only signed a 2-year deal. So let's say it doesn't go perfect, because nothing in football goes perfect. Let's say out of them 10 transfers, 4 of them don't hit the heights that are expected. And that's another year that you need to put on that rebuild, and another year on the legs of players that were, might have hit the initial plan, but now that you've missed that plan by an extra year, they've now got to be moved on. I don't think, just based on the way Pep speaks about it, I don't think Pep would see out this rebuild. I think he'll set the wheels in motion for it. He'll do the first couple of seasons of it, but I don't think it will be done in 1 or 2 seasons. I think it will take more than that. Therefore, I don't think he will see it out. I don't think that how you said, Teddy, it'll be a case of, if he gets it back to winning, that squad might get back to winning, but I don't think Pep will be at the helm for that. I think he will have moved on to whatever his next job will be.
I don't think he necessarily wants. I don't think it's his intention to see out the full rebuild, though. I think he'll want to start that process. I mean, you're saying two seasons. I agree. Any normal team, it would be sort of 2 years to make that rebuild. But I think the fact that it's been so well documented that they are going right to the well in January and again in the summer to rebuild, I think it will be more like 3 windows that they're going to try and do this. They're going to try and start the process in January. They'll go right to the floor in the summer and really start making some moves. And then I think they'll go again in January. And I think this is part of the reason why I actually think this is why Pep signed his new deal, is to see through this rebuild, not to its fruition.
Yeah. Otherwise, he would have signed a 5-year deal, because the contract was signed during this process. I think the one thing that would be, listen, as a rival, I hope he leaves sooner than 2 years, because if this get, and I mean that in the best possible way towards Pep, he's the second greatest manager in Premier League history. He's an absolute don. He has said, though, that he has got no ambition to manage another club. He doesn't have the energy for it. If runs like this continue, results like this continue, you can see that energy get sapped a lot quicker from him, because winning breeds success, but it also gives you more energy. You watch our teams just in individual games as a microcosm of that. Your team could be playing okay, they score a goal, and suddenly they look like a different side. That's going to have an impact. So I hope that it does. Viewers, we'd love to get some of your views, some of your opinions on this from the comments section below. A few people here saying Pep can't rebuild. Well, that's an opinion.
He's done it at least twice at City, though. What? He did it in 17-18 when he signed 6 players that season. He has rebuilt the side. The Centurions are nothing like the team from last season. Isn't it only De Bruyne who's a player older than Pep in terms of City career? Mm-hmm. So that's just objectively incorrect.
But do you know what I would say about it? I'm not saying you're wrong. I suppose it depends on what people consider a rebuild of a squad to be, because every year you're adding new players and selling players. You often only hear a rebuild of a squad spoken about when a team kind of times sort of hits a wall in a season where maybe you didn't expect it, and suddenly there's, oh my God, like a lot of changes needed at once, where often when Man United went through that kind of between sort of 01 and sort of 2004, with like a 3-year period where it just we fell off. And Gary Neville speaks about it in his book Red, that actually the club didn't buy correctly over the 3 years that we won. We did the 3P after winning the treble, and then it all kind of came to a head. And then by the time we built a squad that was good enough to win again, suddenly 3 years had gone by. It didn't help that Chelsea in that period got all their Roman money, and maybe it would have been different without that. But listen, I don't think there's any proof that Pep can't rebuild. But it depends on your definition. But from this position with a struggling team, and we will see.